Well, the time is just gone 12 minutes past 8 a.m. as we kick off with news and views this morning, right here on Assalam Media, taking a look at Baragwanath Hospital. And the question is, what on earth is actually taking place at Baragwanath Hospital? We've heard about more than 900 babies dying from avoidable incidents at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. The hospital's maternity unit had more than 50 medical negligence claims totaling 1 billion rand, amongst many, the multiple issues, the multiple problems that are being experienced at Baragwanath, and I'm sure many of the other hospitals in and around Gauteng, similar problems. And this is the reason why we are joined this morning by the DA Gauteng Shadow Health MEC and also activist politician. We're talking with Jack Bloom. Jack, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Yes, Jack, the question asks, what on earth is actually taking place at Baragwanath Hospital?
Well, quite frankly, it's gobsmacking that for the second time the hospital's running out of food, and that's because they're not paying suppliers on time. And you think if they can't get a simple thing right, what about the other things? And of course, it's of course a very serious matter that the hospital's maternity and neonatal unit, which gives birth to 18,000 babies a year, has so many avoidable factors that lead to infant deaths and injuries. Cerebral palsy cases are terrible cases, and if they go to court, the payout amount could be more than 20 million rand because you have to pay for lifetime care. And of course, we shouldn't be injuring our children in our hospitals. We should be healing them.
Yes, apart from the children, you mentioned food. Now, food is a basic need. It's a basic supply, and if they can't get that right, it's a huge problem, Jack.
Well, absolutely. But it's not just Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. It's all our hospitals. We've seen the massive corruption scandal at the Tembisa Hospital. According to the SIU, about 1 billion rand was misspent at that hospital. Imagine if that money was properly spent on patients. Now, I think there's a scam at virtually every hospital in Gauteng. I think the root of the problem is political appointments, what the ANC calls cadre deployment. They put their buddies in charge, and they're dishonest, and they're corrupt, and they protect it. At the moment, the acting head of the Gauteng Health Department is himself facing corruption allegations. We only have an acting chief financial officer because the previous one is suspended because of corruption allegations. In fact, the whole department is full of acting people because disciplinary action takes so long. And it's never the department itself uncovering corruption. It's only because of questions in the legislature that I put that to get this information in the first place, or independent journalists who uncovered corruption that the department was trying to cover up.
Jack, where does a buck stop against all of this that you're talking about? Because I'm hearing about the acting head of the hospital. We're talking about a staff shortage problem. We're talking about people who are incompetent, inefficient in doing their day-to-day jobs. And who takes responsibility? Where does a buck really stop?
Well, as we're seeing in the life of many hearings at the moment, the politicians are all trying to blame the officials, and I think that's wrong. There needs to be political accountability. We have one political party that's been governing Gauteng since 1994, and they made a complete a hash of the Gauteng Health Department amongst other departments. That's where the accountability really is. So we have elections next year. I think people should make their voices known because, if the politicians should be making sure that the right officials are appointed, honest, competent people, and it's their job to ensure that the budget is properly spent. The Gauteng Health Department has a budget of 60 billion rand. I mean, it's an enormous budget. It's just terribly badly spent, and that's been for many years. Previous Premier David Makura promised that there would be a swift turnaround of this department. That was 8 years ago. The new Premier, Panyaza Lesotho, is also making promises. But as we see, there's just one disaster after another. I mean, how can it be that our largest hospital is short of food and doctors have to go around scrounging for food so that the patients can be fed. It's just unthinkable.
Jack, we're talking about avoidable factors here, and to eliminate all these problems that we are talking about, whether we're talking about babies, we're talking about suppliers not supplying food to the hospital. I'm not too sure, how the quality of the food that patients are getting at this point in time. But these are multiple issues, these are multiple problems, and all of this within the health sector, we can define it as medical negligence. Uh, is the current regime within the province really taking responsibility, or are they also hiding behind, things like, inadequate facilities, equipment, and the like?
Well, if the same political party's been in power for since 1994, I think they can stop blaming the past. Quite frankly, because they've made a hash of things. They have a very large budget. It's just very badly spent. And the tragedy is that there's so many very fine medical professionals who could really do wonders in this department, but they're not appointed because they're not the politically favoured people. One of the frustrating things is that there was a memorandum of understanding signed between the Gauteng Health Department and Wits University last year. This would be an enormous help in improving governance at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital and our other academic hospitals, but they've never implemented this memorandum of understanding. So it's not like there aren't good people. There are lots of very good people. They just shut out. And they're shut out because they're not part of the corruption networks. I mean, that's the only conclusion you can draw at this stage, unfortunately.
Yes. Now, I know that there have been questions that have been raised to the Gauteng Health MEC, particularly with regard to equipment shortages. And, I spoke about the deaths and just looking at the neonatal and also looking at the maternity wards, which is one problem. But also, we've heard about things like, lack of cooling facilities, food that needs to be stored under certain conditions, and to make sure that food doesn't go off, and to make absolutely sure that the quality of the food that is being fed to patients is up to standard. Now, all of this being blamed, and clearly, they could have foreseen that these equipment problems or equipment shortages are going to be problematic.
Well, surely they didn't discover yesterday that they don't have adequate cold storage facilities at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. It just shows you the poor management that we have there. Surely they should have made sure that they have decent, cold supply, but they don't. So, the people at the end of the day who are suffering are patients. There's about 10,000 people waiting for surgery at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. I mean, these people are suffering. And then what happens is that finally they get to the operating table, and then the operation is cancelled because there isn't clean linen, or there's or the generators aren't working, or something else that should be avoidable. So if it's not one thing, it's another thing. I really feel for patients. I feel for staff who are trying to do their job, and to have a basic thing like food in short supply is just unbelievable. The same thing happened last year. Why can't they pay suppliers on time? And it's not just this hospital, it's other hospitals as well. I'm getting reports of food shortages at West Rand hospitals as well. And suppliers are not supplying other things as well, medical equipment. That has huge implications. The problem really is that the financial year ends at the end of March. Towards the end of the financial year, they always seem to run out of money. And then at the beginning of the financial year, they're too busy paying off the debts of the previous financial year. So it's just chronic financial mismanagement that the Auditor General points out every year, but they don't do anything to fix it.
Yes, Jack. In fact, just on that point that you've raised, and we've seen the health MEC saying that there is a demand for planning and procuring equipment every financial year, talking about staff shortages, and also at the same time looking at some of the other disciplinary issues, things like absenteeism in the workplace. all of this put together. But again, when you make a statement, there is a demand for planning and procuring equipment every financial year. This is not something like you mentioned, for instance, the cold room facilities that didn't come about yesterday. Again, it requires foresight, it requires a vision, and it requires the political will to do something, and these inefficiencies and the all other staff related, people related problems have been existing for a number of years, and they just can't seem to get it right.
One example, 300 million rand that was meant for hospital renovation was returned to Treasury in the last financial year because they didn't spend it. Now, I mean, what level of incompetence do you have to have where you don't spend available money? And why couldn't that money be spent on a cold storage facility at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital? Or I could think of 100 priorities at different hospitals. So there you have it. You have available budget. It's either wasted or it's not spent at all and returned to Treasury. And let's return to the massive corruption that happened with the COVID money. Close to 2 billion rand emergency funds was made available because of the COVID-19 epidemic. And I can tell you most of that was wasted. They spent close to 600 million rand on a hospital in the far West Rand that is now abandoned. They built all sorts of new wards that are also abandoned. So I'm afraid that there's systemic corruption, inefficiency, there's political protection, there's never accountability. Everybody points fingers at everybody else. And quite frankly, I don't think there'll be fundamental change until there's a change in the ruling party in Gauteng.
Well, Jack, we're going to have to leave it at that. Jack Bloom, DA, Gauteng Shadow Health MEC. We thank you for your time with us this morning right here on Salam Media.
Thank you.
That brings us straight on to 8:24. We've got a lot more to unpack, to uncover this morning. Stay with us.
Rejuvenate